Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Yip Yap podcast, the ethnic studies podcast that you know and love. I'm your host, as always, John Ray, or JR.
What's up? My name is Paolo. I am not not doing what I'm doing fine. I was rubbing my temples because it's good to rub your temples every so now and then, and just give
Yes, it
yourself like
is.
a yes. Anyway,
Good little head massage. Anyway, so today, for the past two episodes, we've been going over Avatar episode by episode. We should be on episode three right now, but instead, in honor of Filipino American History Month, I'm going to have me go blind react to something. So we're gonna watch the whole thing first, and then we're gonna have a little bit of discussion. And depending on
right?
how YouTube likes it, we may or may not include the section where he watches it. If not, we'll just jump straight to his reaction.
Yeah. So here we go. Oh, so fucking cute. Holy shit. Okay.
All right. So,
um.
what do you think, man?
Holy shit. There's a lot to break down. Okay, so intro aside, we're going to attempt to avoid copyright because you know what? If anything, if it helps, we are definitely not like um sponsored or in any shape or form.
Oh no, yeah. Rooster Teeth
Yeah,
did not sponsor this video whatsoever.
yeah. However, we will link this animation down to the chat. I believe that there's or in our comment section there is like a whole thing about this that we could like that we could look at that y'all could like go ahead and check out. So we're gonna do that for y'all because this is um
I
processing.
want, yeah, I want to get your reactions, dude.
Yeah. All right. So I guess big things to note first and foremost. We're gonna again. I'll try. Let's see how this works. There is a lot of really charming little quirky things, and I don't know. Like it's God, I love it so much. I think that's just kind of what I'm trying to get at. Is that like there are so many like minuscule little things I could go on for days and days. But especially with so Jared did mention it is Filipino American Heritage Month.
History Month.
History? Thank you. I remember there's like a discrepancy there. For those of you who are unaware, there's like there's like this basically it's important to acknowledge that this is Filipino American History Month, not just here, and like and that history encapsulates heritage among other things. So with that kind of within that context of like understanding like history and all that stuff, like this is like fuck. I guess I'll just start by saying that like it's super charming and it captures that like really it almost feels like we're watching Avatar, and that's kind of like probably the reason why JR even showed this to me in the first place, is because this is kind of the style is of the Avatar style, like it's very rounded, it's very I just unplugged my own headphones. Good job, me. It's a very rounded art style, but it's also very clearly inspired by anime, but to the point where I don't know. It's always been this really interesting kind of combination of an anime art style, but like with Western, I guess you could say, influence to it. Because like, if y'all who are familiar with like anime or at least Avatar and the art style isn't necessarily anime in like what looks like anime because it still looks like it looks similar to it, I guess is what you could say. So I really appreciate that aesthetic, but in addition to that, like it's not a show that tries so hard, or again, this seems to be just like pilot stuff because it was probably really trippy earlier to just hear her kind of uncapped at this camera. um this part was really trippy because like I don't know. It like you can tell that like whoever was doing the voice work was having fun. The first off, the animation is gorgeous.
Like this pretty much.
The
Weirdo.
character designs are great, and it's I think they're using Flash animation. I can kind of tell, but also I can't
I have always
super tell. But yeah, that's like a really big thing for me about this. Yeah, honestly, a lot of thoughts. I'm probably gonna have way more as the show goes along. But I guess yeah, like general reaction, this is really fucking great. In addition to it being just a really good representation of film. I think like just for me, the character herself, Arizal, is just so damn charming, and you know they act like a believable child, like a believable kid, and I just realized just like even all these little freeze frames of her just doing stuff, and
that free,
like I know
that
it's
freeze frame with her hair.
it's so expressive, and you know they're clearly I don't know how to explain it, but like
no.
it's like everything about this is just it just screams like personality. And like what I love about it too is that we don't there's a lot of visual storytelling that happens like later on in terms of like her room and her books. But what I love is that this fixed camera angle allows us to really look at her character. So shout out to the creator of this because there's a lot that can go wrong in terms of
I meant
having a
a
character move around in this space, but to have her not just be stationary and talk, and to have her incorporate like these little like gestures, like there's a lot of like
they go
little like
to
frames
new place
here where if you pause it, you know, there's like
and
I don't know, like her character is super expressive and it's super alive, and the whole Tito, like I don't know, it warms my little Filipino heart. So
So since you talked about it's warming your little Filipino heart. So I actually watched all of the Prelude logs. So there's four of them in total. I don't know if we're gonna do episodes for all of them, but there's four Prelude logs in total, and I took notes each time I watched an episode because I was so excited for this project to come out. Um, Ate Isa did a great job writing this story. Um, and Migo, before I even continue, do you notice anything interesting about the name? Does it seem familiar to you?
it sounds like a play on Jose Rizal. Like it's like you take the last part of Jose and just get the Arizal and then just change it to an A, so it's a bit more like feminine sounding. So it's Arizal. So it's really cool, which is really that's a really nice touch. I like that. I noticed that callback. I am quite the history, not even buff. I just know I know names. But yeah,
Yeah, no. So it's Rizal's last name as the first name, but with an A in front of it,
yeah, that's
to
such
put
a
it lightly.
it's really clever though because it really works. It's not just like
Yeah,
a typical naming convention, or I mean there are a lot of typical naming conventions, but that's what I'm saying is that like it's
I think
interesting
it's a
that it's
very Filipino naming
yeah.
convention.
And
You know,
if it's too with like the lore that we get here, we talk about how, or she talks about how like she wants to be a record keeper. No, I should be saying they. My bad. But they are talking about how they want to be a record keeper, and in addition to that, they want to like they make it clear that like I don't know. It's interesting that like Jose Rizal, if I were to look at it, his story, I kind of vaguely remember it, but it's interesting how there's somewhat of a connection between the two. I have to like do my Filipino history to remember why. JR, if you could speak to that, feel free. What was your thing? Because I guess I'm viewing this from the perspective of someone who doesn't know much Filipino history. To be
hmm
fair, like I know that I'm FilAm, but like I'm still kind of I'm learning, and
yeah,
it's quite the
that's fine.
process. Um,
Um,
but
I
yeah.
mean, I guess my question to you is like, if you just look at it from the lens of being Filipino and your own lived experience, like what comes out to you and when you watch this episode?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. All right, so let me start digging then. What I love about this whole thing is, in addition to the fact that like she doesn't have a well, not having an accent is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's interesting that they chose to give her not an accent. But I think there's a bit more to the world building that is there's probably a reason for that if that makes sense.
Hmm
I don't know. First and foremost, it's like where do I even start? You know, let's start with the fact that we finally get a proper Filipino character represented. And I know that there's always going to be people nitpicking there about yes, to be fair, this isn't the most accurately visually drawn Filipina out there, but that's kind of the point though. Like it may not resonate with some people, but it's going to grab a wide enough audience enough to kind of hit that relatability note. But that's where I don't kind of put so much emphasis on that, and I kind of just drive the conversation away from that because like to me it's like okay cool she's a Filipina, but how else does she do that? And then she have all these little minor like little interactions, this whole summer project thing, this whole thing about like she wants to get ahead, and then like she has all these friends, and I think a little
Very Filipino, trying to get ahead during summer.
I know in classes the fact that she gets called out by her friend for being in the school uniform, and I just again I love her expressiveness. There's a lot of like animation that's going on, and what's like one thing I really like. This is a really interesting shot, just because it's I don't know. There's a lot that this show does. Um, I think I especially like
the
there's a
city. Hmm.
that's just adorable. That's just so precious. she's just
That would
like
make a good wallpaper.
I know for real. So that's just it's just cute. It's just I don't know, like there are these little things about it where it's like it. I think what I really love about this too is they didn't try too hard to make her um a quirky, fun, cutesy girl, I guess you could say. Like it's believable. At least like I believe that she is a youth in the more of like the themes that she represents here, and it hits that same note of universality, but also the relatability, in the sense that like as a Filipino kid looking at this, like obviously you can only imagine like how Filipinos are depicted in media, and if and the reason why I'm even struggling to find a point of comparison is because there's not a lot. And that's why this show to me is like really cool, because not only is she endearing and relatable, but to an extent, the things that she talks about like getting ahead or want to do something or just having aspirations for certain things, it's like that's just normal to have as a human being, and that's really important to me, especially seeing it here, because it's not like we kind of for once see a person or a Filipino kind of portrayed without a rigid idea behind it. Usually, like I know that, and Jared can help me out here for sure. A lot of Filipinos should like have been seen in Western media, at least, like prior to this, as kind of the I don't know, like the role is completely different. They're more like the caretaker. They're more like the companion to an extent, and actually also extends to a lot of honestly by POC roles. And just as a quick explanation, what by POC means by is Black Indigenous People of Color. So literally everyone under the sun that isn't white. But anyways, point being is that that characters of who identify as those, they don't necessarily share the spotlight. We don't get to see what their goals and aspirations are. They're side characters that have very direct motives that help the protagonist kind of move forward. But here we have a clear sense of conflict. We have a clear sense of what this person wants. And then we also have friends who are also questioning her. And then we also see a little bit into her family life, all within the span of like not even 4 minutes, because the artist and the creator actually gave an intro. But the fact that there's so much to kind of tell who she is in these short like 3 minutes says a lot about what the writers are doing for the character, and also how they're setting up this world. Because I love how her room too, it's like it's this really fanciful mix of like modern and like their own kind of fantastical futuristic world, like just kind of combing through here. I like how like I thought this was like a student ID, but this is like their icon. Let me just annotate real quick because I can do this. Whoop, this thing here is not just their student ID, it's like their iPhone type of thing, and that's really cool. And it has like multiple functions because it allows for it to both like, well, like again, I mean, an iPhone allows us to text chat and all that, but yeah, that's just really cool about that. And again, she has a lot of expression, like minute little things, like where she has like small eyes, like big eyes here, where she's listening to her friend. She has small eyes here, and this is kind of like the hallmarks of like a lot of like, I guess like it's why anime is so expressive. I guess you could say like it's the thing that I notice that give anime expressiveness. Like they not just change their facial style, but they'll change the eyeballs so that they reflect different emotion. But like again, it's like what kind of going back to what I'm saying. Like we finally get a Filipina character here, who isn't just representing like Filipinas and Filipinos too, in like an animated like world. But in addition to that, she's not just like your typical rigid stoic person. Like she has conflict. She's scared of things. She's funny. She's quirky. She does like stupid shit. And again, hold on, where's that fucking freeze frame? It's like my favorite freeze frame.
The one of her coming up gasping from air.
This is so good.
So funny. One of my like, so I took notes while I was like watching this for the first, like for my very first time, and like one of the things that I really resonated with was, one, she wants like her whole thing of like being a record keeper just reminds me of like, oh, like that's like why I want to become a teacher.
It's a
You know, like she has a drive, she has this passion to become something.
Yeah.
But the thing that like that really took me out was, we hear Arizal and we hear her voice and how she talks. Like and you pointed it out earlier, she doesn't have much of a Filipino accent, except for when she says certain words. She says tito and
Yes,
tita, right?
ate and all that.
Ate, right?
Mm.
And then when we get introduced to her aunt, we hear a very heavy Filipino accent.
Yeah, like, and the thing is too is I love how it isn't
I worked really
overplayed.
hard on this a
I
few
guess
years
you could
ago.
say like it's
Rizal?
There
What
it is.
going?
like it's yeah the
Anong ginawa
intonation is
mo?
yeah it's so perfect. Like they could have easily made it where they like totally just oversell the auntie's like her accent and all that, but like it's I guess what I'm saying is like it's believable. You know that
Yeah,
this is an aunt talking to her niece,
and
and
like to me, like hearing when I heard those words, and I heard like specifically when I heard ate, tita, and I heard um, sure, because what she said, I live with my tito and tia, and my tia, that's Spanish, my tito and tita, oh, what about my ate, when they're talking about their room, um, it's like it's stuff that you hear, at least from my own personal experience, that you would hear in a household like that. How come my ate um does all of this, Like, oh, it's because, you're still in high school, your ate's in college, you
mm-hmm.
know? Um, she's like, why aren't you cleaning your room? Like, my room is clean. Like, I'm working on something, It's like, well, you should still clean your room because it still looks dirty.
I know, and
And
that's the
hearing Tagalog at all in this was like amazing for me.
for real. Like I love how again it's like these small nods. Like I'm pretty sure they either go back to this because from what I understand too, these are just prelude episodes to like the real deal.
Correct. Which has
Um,
not been released yet.
yeah, so hopefully we get a proper real deal thing to this. Yeah, we're gonna be linking all of this in our description, so y'all can check them out because I definitely feel like this is like I'm gonna definitely be looking on more of these prelude episodes now because the funny thing is especially with this month, kind of we're gonna probably be doing more to bring a lot of uh. I get well. We're still gonna talk about Avatar. That's for sure. This is only episode 3, folks. So don't worry. Um, But yeah, like we do want to like I really appreciate you, JR, for bringing this to my attention because I think a couple of weeks ago I found out that there's a Filipino fighting game called Bayani, which is like
Mm, mm-hmm.
for those of you who don't know, because it's like what the hell is he talking about now? It's in the same hemisphere of what we're talking about, but like we're starting to see Filipino representation kind of permeate more popular media. Um, kind of harkening back to I think of this past summer or like a couple, maybe even like last spring or something. There was a Filipina superhero. Give me one
Oh, right, in
second.
Marvel,
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and
the
stop this
Marvel
screen
comics.
for the sake of
Um, while you're looking that up, it was like having this story be written by a Filipino American and like I don't know, just having it written by Filipino American and animated, it really warmed my heart when I watched it, and I have notes for the other three preludes because I'm just like, man, like this is awesome, like
yeah,
seeing something like this because I can't think personally, Migo, you can talk from your own lived experience, but for myself, like I can't think of a time where I saw a Filipino or Filipino American as a main character, whether that be animated or live action in like mainstream. I feel like a lot of people are gonna say, what about Dante Basco and the Debut? Sure. I will give y'all that.
yeah.
But that like I feel like that's one of, and the prince from that one Cinderella version.
I know what you're talking about. He was definitely Asian Am, but it was when
Pretty sure the
Cinderella
actor was
was
Filipino.
and Cinderella was black, and I haven't seen it yet,
Yeah,
but I heard some really good stuff
it's a
about
really
it.
good. It's a really good version
Yeah,
of Cinderella.
it's one of those things I feel
Um,
like I've seen in like passing. Like I saw like, well, that's Cinderella. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And I never like like thought to like delve deep into it.
but it's like
Um,
it's not very often I feel like we get to see Filipino American characters be written be written by and for another Filipino.
yeah,
You
like
know,
everything is
like
just
Dante Bosco, who's really big. Like he's like one of my prime examples. I love him. He's a great voice actor, an amazing actor, and overall. But you know, he Zuko isn't Filipino. Great character. Is not Filipino. Voices him. Jake Long is definitely not Filipino.
Yeah,
You
long.
know,
Like he was more
um,
like
unless he's half Filipino, but we know that's not the case. You know, he's half white, half Chinese.
yeah,
Um,
and who else was there? I feel like you're go ahead, Jared. I want to let you finish.
Rufio, but Rufio's not Filipino. He's whatever ethnicity. I
The
don't know. Maybe
Lost
he is
Boys
Filipino
are,
from the
yeah.
Lost Boys.
I mean, yeah, like the
Maybe
thing
Rufio
is,
is Filipino.
yeah, like the thing is, like what's really good about this animation in the first place too is, and I think it kind of ties back to like why we talk about Avatar in the first place is because like for a long period of time we do start to see like Asian Americans get like represented, and obviously I understand too, like from a creative standpoint it's hard even as a like as an Asian American myself. Like I'm a creative writer, by the way, so like I write fiction, I write nonfiction, and I also write poetry. But what I'm thinking about when it comes to writing from my own lived experiences and when I'm trying to kind of replicate that authentically, there is always the case of like, am I also like representing myself properly? And there's a lot that goes into that process. So the reason why this was so big, at least in my like in my opinion, I know that hasn't been a first episode, but first off, shout out Rooster Teeth for even doing this. Rooster Teeth has a huge platform, um, and they're doing a lot for creators like this. What's really big for me is the fact that, like, you know, here's kind of like, I guess you could say proof of not just concept, but proof that, like, you know, you can represent a Filipino and a Filipino American character nonetheless without having to delve so far into the stereotypes, but just enough to basically, like, you know, for me and JR, it's clear it's scratched that like nostalgia factor of like, oh shit, yeah, that's what my aunt would say, or oh shit, that's how I would feel during the summer. Because the funny
Multiple
thing is this,
generation families.
yeah, like it's hilarious to me that I was on the opposite end of Arizal's, um, let's just say proactivity to be ahead of herself. Because I would get those stupid summer reading packets, and I would probably, I think I even got away with like if for those of you who knows what they are, but like I'll briefly summarize it. The summer reading packet, they were like what 2 or 3 books you had to read over the summer.
I never did the summer reading, man.
I think once I reached high school, I got away with spark noting the book and then doing like the whole first project. I think it was also the time where I was just like, you know what, I'll take the F because it's just the first F of the semester, but I can't. I'll turn it into the A by the end of the year. So,
It's a good
um,
mentality.
right? It always felt like you know, like you think that there was a lot riding on it, but in reality, there's not much. But yeah, like again, the next big thing is kind of bringing it back to Wave. Was that Wave is a Marvel character, yeah, and they're really cool, but that's just kind of it. Like I'm really thinking about it. There's nothing much about Wave aside from the superhero ness that like, oh hey, we have a Marvel superhero. Granted, it is important to have like a, you know, a superhero in the traditional sense, to represent like FilAms. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, and it's funny too because like there is a comic about Jose Rizal that was written by a Japanese person, and there's like a whole manga series about it, and the art looks dope, right?
I remember hearing about that, and I still haven't
Yeah.
read it, but I was like, oh my god,
It's
this is
okay,
a thing.
JR. Off podcast, I'll send you the link. 'Cause we could talk about that in the future because it's really interesting because the way that they drew to like Filipinos, like yes, of course, you know they're not, the pages aren't colored because that's just how manga typically is. Um, but even though there's like the funny thing is it's like like there is definitely like a Japanese art style that's obvious when you see it, but in my mind, I'm still registering like, yeah, this is kind of like what a Filipino looks like. Like, they're like rendered by a Japanese artist, but even the Japanese artist who was in charge of it, I read somewhere that he lives in Cebu or something. I'll have to look into that, but he's not like, I think he's Japanese Filipino, I think. So
Mm.
I have to look into that. So don't you can so if y'all know about this, please fact check me in the comments. More than down to engage with y'all. Um, but yeah, I guess just going back to this thing, like it's really, again, it's just like it's a really wholesome depiction of a Filipino person, but not just in the whole like, oh, she's like, you know, she's not being asked to clean dishes, she's not expected to do anything. She even shows some like like a bit of a rebellious spirit, and everything here just kind of screams like, oh, she's definitely the protagonist of the story. Like she's making decisions, she's coming into contact with like, oh, how she feels about things, and I love that because it shows that like there's no ethnicity tied to being proactive. You can assign that to anyone. It's just
Mm.
that like a lot of media up till what we see right here. Actually, the thing is too, this is like released just in the recent summer, so this is very recent. You
Yeah.
know, now we're finally seeing that like, oh yeah, huh, like you know what I mean, like because like let's be like real too. A lot of like to some extent, there have been very just limiting depictions of what certain Asian cultures look like, and for Filipinos, it's always been like the stoic, like you know, like they know everything character, and honestly, that kind of goes for a lot. I'm actually describing a lot of Asian like depictions in the media, and like
Or they're a background nurse.
yeah, background nurse or something, or they provide some sort of advice that kicks the protagonist into gear. It's never let's talk about the nurse, like why
Or
is that?
sometimes
Why?
they're Filipino, a Filipino actor casted as something else.
Yeah, like well, like why the fuck is like Philip? Why is actor working so hard in like Seton Medical Center? Let's fucking talk about that shit. And yeah, the funny thing is too, I think Crazy Rich Asians, Chris Aquino was in it, and I was going wild in the
Yes, Chris
theater,
Aquino was in it.
but she was playing a Malaysian person.
He was
What
playing a
country?
Malaysian character, I believe
Yeah,
so.
and that movie is great in terms of representation. Like it definitely
It
stepped
is.
up
It's
its
amazing.
game. Yeah, but it's
Nico
like
Santos was also in that, but he also played
yeah,
Malaysian.
he didn't play the Filipino
He didn't play
character.
the Filipino character. It
Yeah,
was dope. Don't get me wrong. Seeing Chris Aquino and Nico Santos,
yeah.
two big Filipino actors.
Like low key, they
Um,
were like what celebrities of our own childhood to an extent because not I don't know about your experiences with them, but for me it's like oh my parents, they were the movie stars that our parents looked up to.
or at
So
least
that's
for
why
Chris Aquino, Nico Santos is a little bit more like recent.
yeah, Chris Aquino was like the oh yeah, my
Chris
parents
Aquino
look.
was in everything, man.
I know. Talk about oversaturation. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, when you find something, it works. It works.
I know. Looking at you, Call of Duty. Stop. Rescind Black Ops, please. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, and that's why, like, again, I think what's so cool about this too is like, for once you have like a like legit like, I am a Filipino male identifying person, but I connect with the things that Arizal talks about, and that's what's important in terms of representation. Like I briefly mentioned, these ideas of like questioning your future, being ahead of yourself, being a bit rebellious. It doesn't like what I love is that this kind of goes to prove something that we forget that like just because a certain character is of a certain ethnicity or race, that's not how they act. Because granted, I understand too that there's a lot of like notions that oh Filipinos are this way or even like Japanese people are like this way, but that's not necessarily because that's how they inherently are. That's a depiction set by like a certain standard, by a certain history, by certain factors, etc. There's just so much to it that obviously, um, yeah, I think that's just kind of where I was getting with that because at the end of the day, like all this stuff is, it's positive. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's good stuff. It's not gonna be like of course I think what else I want to like say now too is this shouldn't. I hope that for all of you watching, I hope you don't think I'm saying that this is the definitive way of how a Filipino should be represented. Rather, this is how nuanced a Filipino character can be. They like maybe they are like the side character, but like they clearly there's untapped potential for us to bring our culture and experiences to a protagonist who is dealing with these ideas. Um, is good because because the thing is we talked about this last episode, but like the indigenous tribe of the water tribe was kind of like at the time too the closest that we kind of got to brown skin representation in
Mm.
cartoons. You know, like well, you could also count Cyborg, but that's like one person. Avatar kind of increased that count because Cyborg was the only and he was dark skinned and also he was African American, so you got like that. He was like I want to say he was the first black car. No, he was the first black cartoon. There was Static Shock. Static Shock was dope.
Yo, that was a great show.
Static Shock was actually really good. Water break. But yeah, anything that you wanted to add to this, Jared, that you wanted to ask me, like, yeah, like I guess in general, like this is really fucking cool. I guess I'm just, like I teach class usually on the mornings that we record these podcasts, so I'm a little bit tired, but this is such a breath of fresh and endearing air. I'm rooting for her. I hope she does well in this homework assignment.
If you watch the rest of them on your own, you're in for a treat. I hope you do. Um, I wanted to have you blindly react to this because it's Filipino American History Month. I thought it was a great time to introduce this to you. So we might
Mm-hmm.
be doing more episodes of recorded by Arizal reactions if Migo wants to do more blind ones, or we might dissect them for the next.
For the next couple
Uh,
episodes.
yeah, just because it's Filipino American History Month.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we'll do a different Filipino American history thing tomorrow. Tomorrow, next week.
Yeah, next week, and we will definitely. And I guess for the Ate who wrote this and who is the creator of this show, thank you so much for it.
Yes,
I
thank you so much,
definitely
Ate
enjoyed it.
East.
Ate East, just wanted to shout you out. Again, we are not in any shape or form affiliated by Rooster Teeth. We're just a couple of adults who really like animation, and seeing our faces and our skin tone represented by
In
others.
our language.
I
Like
don't
when
know,
I heard
right?
Tagalog for the first time in there, I was like, oof, oh, that hit.
Aside from just like there's something so much more satisfying than hearing just your typical, oh, yo, you've ever tried this Filipino spot? I heard they got good lumpia. Ha ha. It's like, okay, Jesus Christ.
Or the, oh, you're Filipino? Oh, my partner's Filipino. I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And,
Anyway,
and,
sorry, I threw up a little bit in my mouth, but tell me again why that matters to our conversation,
yeah, it
Mister. I
doesn't.
have a Filipino partner. You know. Anyway, but yeah, like it's just this is just super cool, and I really love that. Like it's and I think for me too, it's like as a person who wants to create like stories based off of being Filipino as well. This kind of proves that sometimes it's not as difficult as it may seem. Like you don't have to make it like this big deep thing. Like it can start as simple as, hey, start off with a concept of a summer project that this one kid is starting off a little too early than the rest of her classmates. That was really cute, and that's really fucking dope. You know? Um,
Yeah, I can't wait to tell me, or I can't wait for you to tell me what you think about
yeah.
the rest of the preludes, man.
For something shorts like this, I think it would be like again. Let us know what happens. I know that our show is still in its fledgling state, and this is only episode 3, and we're basically just stocking up episodes at this point so that y'all have something to watch. But
And
yeah, let us know.
this is kind of a shorter episode. It was a shorter bit of content, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll probably be back to our normal Avatar watching stuff, maybe at the end of October, depending on what we decide to do
Yeah.
for the next few weeks for Filipino American History Month.
We might look
Uh,
into other media, and I mean, let us know too. Reach out to us to let us know if there's any other Filipino media that you want us to look at. We're definitely opening that up to y'all. So yeah, but again, thank you for checking us out. I don't know. Are there any last things you wanted to mention, Jr.?
Recorded by Arizal is the four preludes that are out right now are really good. Ate Isa and the team at Rooster Teeth, the animation department who made and put that all together worked really hard on it. And go watch it. It's free on YouTube. It's free on the RT site at roosterteeth.com.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so just go out and consume it. Go watch it because
Yeah.
like we've been saying, it's not often we see Filipinos in the forefront of media like this. So just watch it and just
You
if you like
know,
it, you like it. If not, it's all good.
yeah. If not, I'm gonna personally hunt you down and make you like it.
Well, I
How
mean,
dare you
that's what
not
he
like
said,
it?
not
Yeah.
me.
But but for real though, like I hope y'all really do check this one out. Because it's hard, especially as a creative, especially nowadays too, with like the pandemic going on. It is not, it is not a simple task to just go out there and be like, hey, let me introduce my animation work. Of course, animators, you can feel free to fact check me on that. But like with YouTube as a very open platform where there's all these other like media and content on it, stuff like this is like if y'all are really looking for that break, this is that break. Like check this kind of stuff out. It's easier for an animator to upload their stuff on YouTube. It's hard for them to get support. So so especially this one because this is a FilAm based piece of artwork. Check them out, but also support your local or your local YouTube animators as well.
Yeah,
Lord knows that they need those subs, they need that attention because it's just easy for them to upload and make their content. Let them know that you like their stuff. So again, to the creators, recorded by Arizal, thank you so much for this. It was just you've created a charming character. You know, we hope
I
that
can't
the
wait to see
first
more.
we hope that the first episode actually gets released. I'm looking forward to this being a series. Yeah, it has just like some legit world building that I'm just super into, and I love this show. So
All right,
this gets
cool.
a good thumbs up from me.
I think that'll cut it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We will see you in the next video.
Yeah, peace out. Take care, everyone.
Love you.